Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Something a little bit different today, a long cut video if you will. These become quite popular on YouTube, kind of amalgamation of multiple videos, and today we're going to be putting together all the G5 iMac videos that I've done over the past, trying out different operating systems, getting the thing up and running, and lots of other content as well. So if you're looking for a longer form video that you can just stick on in the background, or maybe, you just want to catch up with old content, this is the place to be. Please do let me know down below what you think of these kinds of videos. I kind of have a plan to do one every month, but your feedback is very, very welcome. Okay, let's get into it. That is my G5 iMac, which I picked up at a car boot very recently, bundled with another iMac for £20. It boots up, it turns on, the screen works, but it can't find any bootable media. So, of course, naturally, we're going to install Linux on it. I could go down the route of installing an age-appropriate version of Mac OS and getting it all running, but that is boring. Instead, we are going to have a stab at getting Debian Linux installed on this thing, which is quite interesting. I did a bit of research, and it's one of the few distros that are still producing versions for PowerPC 64-bit. And it actually seems like it's just one person who runs the mailing list and continues to do the builds. So thank you very much, person. I will put their information down below because they deserve any appreciation that you can give. But after I found a blog post that was kind of describing doing just this from last year, followed their link and grabbed a snapshot of Debian for PowerPC 64-bit. Now, before we get installed, let's crack this thing open. This is one of the last iMacs, really, that was still completely user serviceable. So I want to get it open. I want to take a look. It's probably going to need a cleaning. God knows where it's been in the last 20 years. So let's get that done, and then let's get Linux installed. So the brilliant thing about this Mac is that this is kind of the last iMac that you can actually easily get inside. So let's get the back off and let's check a look inside to see the state of everything. It's literally just 3 screws along the bottom, and then the whole top panel lifts off. So it is as easy as, well, that would explain it. This is where the hard drive should be. So someone has actually followed correct thing to do and removed the hard drive before selling this. So we'll need to get a hard drive, that's for sure. It's also looking pretty dusty in here. So I'm going to take this outside, blast it with some compressed air, and then we'll get a drive installed and see how we go from there. Blasted it out. They probably could do with a bit more of a deeper clean, but it's fine for now. And more importantly, installed a hard drive as well. So yeah, let's see if we can get Debian installed on this thing. So we are going to be installing Debian 12 on this iMac. Yes, there is still someone building Debian 12 for the PowerPC 64-bit. I believe it's basically just one guy at this point, so massive, massive props to him. I'll leave some information down below. He's also in charge of the mailing list for this version. So if you have an old PowerPC iMac and you want to give it a go, it's a thing. It's burnt to disk. This is a net install, so we do need to be connected to the internet for this to work properly. But let's give it a go. Let's see if we can get this installed. So unfortunately, I think the CD drive in my Mac is dead. It will accept the disk, it makes lots of crunchy sounds, and then it won't boot, it won't load it. So unfortunately, I think that drive is dead. I do, however, have one of the old Intel iMacs of this, like the next generation after this, and I believe, looking online, they use the same disk drive. Now that one won't actually boot at all and isn't giving any display out, so if I can't fix it, I will probably borrow that CD drive from that one and transplant it into this Mac, because it would be cool to have a working disk drive, let's be honest. But we do have one other option. I should be able to get this to boot from USB. It looks like it is supported. So let's copy the ISO onto a USB drive and see if that works. I have got it flashed onto this pen drive. Let's give it a go. So to boot from USB on these G5 iMacs isn't quite as straightforward as just turn it on. You do need to boot into open firmware. So to do that, you turn the Mac on and then you hold down Option, Command, and OF. Or if you're using a Windows keyboard like me, the Windows key, Alt, OF. So let's do that now. And there we go. We have booted into the open firmware. The fans are ramping up quite a lot. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be happening. Kind of worried that something's wrong with this, but we'll see. We'll see. But there you go. We are into open firmware. So now we need to run a command to tell it to boot from the USB. I will leave the command down below, but basically it's boot ud colon comma backspace backspace colon tbxi. And with a little bit of luck, it's booting into Grub. Here we go. We've got the Grub bootloader. We can go into the default Debian install. And sometime later, that did take quite a few minutes to boot up, but we are now in the Debian installer. So we can go through and get Debian installed on this machine. I'm not going to show the whole installer. This is standard netboot Debian installer. So we're just going to go through, get it all set up, and let's see how we go.
Some time later.
And there you go. We have booted into Debian 12. It's functional. If I log in, we'll get the full desktop environment as well. I will say there is quite a list of things that aren't quite working right, unfortunately. But there's also a lot that's working correctly. So it's kind of surprising, actually, how functional this is as an operating system on hardware that is now, well, 20 years old and using an obsolete architecture that pretty much doesn't exist in the consumer market anymore. Let's talk about it. So first things first, you will notice that there's some weird graphical glitches that happen, some extra lines on kind of over icons and stuff. Sometimes that's there, sometimes it's not. You can kind of see it more clearly here. But that sometimes goes away, that sometimes doesn't. Generally though, fairly smooth. Things that do work, well, I was able to install the Wi-Fi drivers. Because it's Debian, those drivers aren't open source, so they weren't included from boot. You do have to actually go and install the non-free repo and do Linuxy things and get them. But we do have fully working and connected Wi-Fi, which is very cool. We also have the graphics drivers installed, so we do have technically graphics acceleration, 3D acceleration. I'm not sure if it's actually working properly, to be honest. But the main issue that we do have is, well, let's see if you can hear. The fans keep ramping up, and if I look in the logs, it's actually like throttling the processor. The temperature management stuff thinks that it's reaching super hot temperatures. But if I look at the temperature readings, yeah, if we look at the CPU temperatures, it's sitting around 40 degrees. So something is definitely going on here, that it keeps ramping out when it really doesn't need to be. It keeps throttling the CPU when it really doesn't need to be. And I do just think it's not giving as good of experience as we could get. Other things that aren't working right, well, I can't actually get a web browser to work. Firefox just gives a segmentation fault, and others just don't launch at all. So definitely some issues. But this is a great first start. I'm going to dig into this more. There's also another version of Linux that I have discovered that still supports PowerPC 64-bit. And they have a live boot as well. So I can put that on a USB, live boot it and test it out. So we're going to give that a go. So yeah, there's some things there that aren't working quite right, which is a bit of a shame, but it's a really good starting point. Still, there is one other distribution I've found that does still produce installs for PowerPC 64-bit, and more importantly, has a live environment as well. So this is, I'm not really sure how to pronounce this, Adélie Linux, maybe? And they do still produce 64-bit PowerPC images. So we're going to try that as well. We're going to boot that in live boot and just see if any of the issues I'm experiencing are fixed on there. Is it hardware? Is it software? We'll find out. So I've flashed the live distro onto here. Let's give it a go. Got to do the same thing again, boot into open firmware and then boot to the USB. Well, here we go. We have booted in on the live CD, and I must admit, it already feels much smoother than our Debian install. Still getting the fan noise. I'm not sure if my microphone is picking that up so well, but everything does feel quite smooth. So it's probably safe to say that there is something wrong either with the fans, the thermal sensor, something else internal that I'm going to have to strip this down and give it a good clean and try and figure out what's going on there, because the fans are not happy. But I might have to give installing this a go. Now, I know we haven't got any internet at the moment. I don't have any Ethernet set up here, specifically at the moment. So I do know if you run the installer, you should actually be able to configure the networking as part of that process, and we might actually have working Wi-Fi. Let's check it out. So we're just going to continue. We're just going to continue. Yes. Here we go. So automatic. My computer's connects to the internet directly via a modem or router. Let's see if it can find any internet. It might not. It doesn't look like it's found the Wi-Fi, unfortunately, which means that we would need to lug this thing downstairs, get Ethernet plugged in, get it installed, and then install the Wi-Fi drivers. Wouldn't be a problem, just not obviously very useful for this video. Let's see what else is on here though. It does sound like it has a web browser. Oh, okay, there's not. I think there is a There is NetSurf, which does load, and we do have the HTML. You know, it's really not bad. It's entirely usable. The only thing is those fans, which I really need to have a look at. But there you go. This is modern Linux running on PowerPC 64-bit. Okay, there are some improvements that need to be done. I may have to do a follow-up video, especially if I can get the sensors fixed or whatever's going on to cause those fans to ramp up. If I get that fixed, I might switch it over to run this version because this seems to be much more feature-rich, feature-complete, and stable than the Debian install. So that's kind of cool. Not only is there a way of installing Linux, there are at least two options for modern, up-to-date versions of Linux on the PowerPC 64-bit. Wild, absolutely wild. So there we go, definitely some issues to fix around the fan spinning up, the thermal throttling, and then therefore the performance issues that come with that. Definitely think we've had more luck with this Adélie Linux than Debian, so that's pretty cool. I will definitely be kind of pursuing this further. If you would like a follow-up video to see how we get on with that, please do let me know. I'm actually in communication with the person that wrote the drivers for controlling the fans and everything else on PowerPC Macs. And they're trying to be very helpful, as helpful as they can be, which is great. So maybe I'll get to the bottom of this. I don't know. But either way, it's been a really fun video today anyway. So I hope you've enjoyed it. And to answer the question, I mean, yes, you can actually install a modern Linux environment on 20-year-old hardware and not have that bad of a time, really. I do genuinely believe some of the issues I'm facing are hardware issues, not software. So that's pretty cool. But we are going to wrap it up for today. One thing I do want to mention is I do now have a Discord server, so check out the link down below if you'd like to join that and talk about all things tech, aviation, and everything else that my channel is all about. And if, of course, you haven't already, please do make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now. This is my G5 iMac, and it currently has a couple of issues. In the video recently, we got Debian Linux installed on this, and it worked surprisingly well. There was a couple of issues, however. Namely, it sounds like it's trying to take off. The fans ramp up and ramp down over and over and over. And if we check the logs, there seems to be an issue with the thermal detection. It keeps thinking that it's overheating, ramps up, and then it's fine again, so it comes down and it goes in a cycle. The other issue with it is the disk drive is not working. So today I want to try and correct both of those issues and kind of complete this project to have a fully working G5 PowerPC iMac using a modern Debian install. So I believe I can actually fix both issues with another iMac that I happen to have. So I also got this Intel iMac as part of the same bundle, if you like, both iMacs for £20 at a car boot. And looking online, I think I can use some of the components from this one to fix my G5. This one does not boot at all, it doesn't power on, and frankly, it's far less interesting to me because it's just an old Intel Mac. It's got plenty of those. This, however, can be hopefully the solution to fixing my G5. Someone in the comments of my last video pointed out that the reason why the fans are spinning up could well be because when I replaced the hard drive in that, there was no thermal sensor on that hard drive. And in fact, the thermal sensor had been completely removed, presumably when the last person removed the hard drive. These Macs have a little sensor that kind of sticks onto the hard drive, and that is required. If you don't have that plugged in, well, you quite possibly get what's going on with this Mac. So we're going to try and salvage the thermal sensor from the Intel Mac because looking online, they look like they are identical, or at least compatible. So we're going to try that. We're also going to try and take the CD drive from that Intel Mac and put it in the G5 because again, looking online, they seem to be identical in shape and connection. Don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to give it a go. And if it does work, we have one fully working G5 iMac that cost me £20. Now, I'm not going to show taking apart the Intel iMac because, frankly, it's a real pain to do. If you've ever tried to do these sorts of things, basically when they switched over to Intel, Apple at that point decided, you know what, consumers, screw you, we're not letting you repair anything anymore. So you have to do quite a lot of taking apart, possibly irreversible damage to get in there, and I don't really need to film me swearing for half an hour. So I'm going to get the bits that I need out of that Mac, and then we're going to give this a go.
Some time later.
Okay, so Intel iMac taken apart, and I've managed to get out the hard drive from that Mac. It's actually a 160 gigabyte hard drive. Interestingly enough, it has the SATA connection and then the old Molex as well. This wasn't used, but I'm interested if anyone knows why it has both connections on it. That's very interesting to me. And I will get this plugged into something at some point and wipe it and keep it about. It could be useful. It is specifically an Apple hard drive, so that's kind of cool. But more to the point, it had its thermal sensor still intact. So this, I believe, is what we need to stick into our G5 Mac, and hopefully that will fix the thermal issues. So there's that. And then the other thing I managed to get out is the disk drive. Again, it's this kind of very slim slot loading. It has the same connection on it as our G5, so I'm really hoping this will work. It also has a thermal sensor, which I don't think our G5 one does, but I will save that just in case. Maybe that needs to be connected as well. So I got the cable out for that too. So we'll take a look and let's see what we can get done. First things first, let's get this thermal sensor set up. Now the plug for it is actually just down here behind this shroud. So I think I'm just going to take the shroud off and get in there like that. I think that's just going to save my sanity. With the shroud out of the way, you can kind of see it down here. This is the port. It's labeled HD temperature. And there was just nothing there when I opened this up before because there was no hard drive. So presumably they took the hard drive out. This would have been like stuck. It has a bit of stickiness to the back of it. That's kind of gone away now, but it would have been stuck to the hard drive. So when they pulled it out, it would have come away with it. That's for sure. We're going to just plug this in here, and there we go. And then we'll kind of just, I think, smush it down into this section. There's a bit of space for the cable. This can kind of sit up against the hard drive, so at least it's getting kind of the right thermals. And let's get this case back on. And that should be it. That should be that bit fixed. Okay, so now moving over to the disk drive. This is the disk drive that we have from the Intel Mac. And that's the model number there and everything else. The connection on the bottom. And then the thermal sensor, which is just kind of stuck on, so I can get that off if needs be. Let's get this out now. Funnily enough, this is being held in literally just by one screw down here. It's got some missing screws. Someone was definitely in here before me, perhaps trying to fix it. That's very possible. But yeah, there is one screw holding this in place, which isn't great. I might try and get hold of some extra screws to kind of fix that. But then with that screw out, the whole thing literally just lifts up and out. So I need to get this little daughter board off, and then I need to get it out of the actual case itself. So there's some screws around the edges that I need to get off. And there we go. This is the drive that we've just pulled out. So it's pretty gunky in there, so I might actually be able to clean this up and get this working. But we will try replacing it with its counterpart. Funnily enough, the sticker is on upside down different, but otherwise they look very, very similar. So I'm hoping this is going to work. There we go. The new drive is back in. It all fits. So let's power it up and see what happens. Okay, so we've got one win so far at least. It's booting up and it sounds much, much better. Hopefully you can hear, or rather not hear that yes, the thermal issue has been solved, so a massive thank you to that commenter on the last video who solved the issue for me. Thank you. Let's have a look at that CD drive. And we also have a working disk drive. Here, I grabbed literally the first thing I could reach that was a CD-ROM, which is this Sim2 Glamorous Life stuff. But mounting the CD-ROM to media, and here is the contents of that disk. Awesome. This is so cool that this is working. We have a fully working setup now. So let's get some stuff installed and let's put this machine to the test, which is what I wanted to do with the first video. And here we go. We're a few days later now. I've done a fresh install of Debian 12, and for the most part, everything is now working. This drive is working, fans are working properly, we're not thermal throttling, everything's happy. The only little thing that I haven't been able to get yet is graphics acceleration. When we boot, we get an error saying that the Radeon drivers couldn't locate the BIOS ROM. So if anyone knows how to correct that, please do let me know. Looking online, I couldn't find a whole lot of information. We could try some different distros, see if there's different versions of the drivers that do work. But for today, for this video, from a hardware perspective, we are now fully working. It's just the software's a little bit not quite there yet. It's just absolutely wild to me that we do have a fully functional version of Linux that's modern and, you know, it's using kernel 6.11 and it's running on 20-year-old hardware. Okay, it's not the fastest. And yes, the fact that we haven't got any graphics card acceleration, that's definitely a problem. I still really don't quite know what's going on here. I really couldn't find anything online. The GPU is being kind of correctly identified. And if we have a look at Radeon Top, it kind of is detecting things. It seems like some of the VRAM is being used. But it's definitely not correctly loaded. So again, if anyone knows how to solve this, that would make my day, because that is the final thing going on here. In terms of other things, well, we do have, like I say, modern Linux running, XFCE running. It's slow, but you know, there's no graphics acceleration going on here, so it's actually not that bad. We do have quite a lot of things installed. For example, we do have Arctic Fox downloaded, which has been compiled for PowerPC 64 and gives us a very reasonable web browsing experience. Again, considering the age of this, JavaScript is a bit wonky, but we can definitely surf the web. We could definitely look up things, so like iMac G5, and we can definitely hop over to modern internet. This is actually DuckDuckGo loading. Okay, it's very slow, and also the Wi-Fi is very, very slow in this device. I think it kind of maxes out at about 2 megabyte. But modern internet is running. Here is the Wikipedia page for the G5. It's functional. You could actually, you know, access basic internet in the modern day. It's blowing my mind, I have to admit. I will say that actually, during the filming of this video, Action Retro has released a video about his G5 iMac that has the iSight camera, which is technically the last one. Well worth a look at, because what I found fascinating was that the teardown of that iMac G5, very, very similar to the Intel iMac that I just had to take apart to get the disk drive and thermal sensor out of. So it seems like they completely revamped the internals of this iMac for the iSight upgrade. So to a consumer, literally all they changed is added a webcam, but internally it's completely different. And actually, that does mean that this really is the last iMac that they built that's actually consumer repairable. I thought that maybe the iSight one was the same as this, but it is not. So really is kind of cool. This is the last kind of all-in-one iMac that you can actually repair, and repair easily. So It's a shame, really, of course, but this is still very cool that we've got this working. Other things that are functional. So speakers are completely functional here. So if we... Okay, they blow out a bit if you go a bit too loud, but at sensible audio levels, fully working audio, which is great. Video playback kind of works. Again, because we haven't got that graphics acceleration and we are solely relying on the CPU here, it is a little choppy. So this is 480p video. And I mean, it works. It is just a bit choppy. And definitely if you try to do anything else at the same time, that would be a bad experience. But I mean, it's functional. It's definitely functional, which is cool. Again, considering that is without graphics acceleration. Yeah, I'm impressed by that. So yeah, there we have it. We have modern Linux running relatively well. Certainly if you didn't actually want to use a graphics environment and you did just need the command line, this is perfect. You don't need the graphics card. I will maybe continue to try and find out what's wrong with that graphics card, and any tips and tricks, would love to hear it. Obviously, commenters on the last video fixed the fan issue for me, so more than welcome. And maybe we'll do a third part as well. Or maybe we'll have a look at some other distros. Let me know down below if you'd be interested in a video about that as well. So there we have it. Still not quite the outcome I was hoping for. I would really love to have graphics acceleration working. But we're getting there, piece by piece. And I think maybe I need to actually try installing Mac OS on this thing and actually check that there's no hardware issues with the graphics card or chip, because we haven't actually run Mac OS on this Mac. I got it without a hard drive and went straight to Linux. So haven't really done a proper hardware test. Maybe I need to do that. I don't know. Comment down below if you have any tips, any tricks, or if you would like to see another video in this ongoing saga of me trying to get a fully functioning, perfect G5 iMac. We're nearly there though. But that is going to be it for today's video. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please do make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and check out my Discord as well. It's brand new. I think maybe there's 3 people in there at the moment, so more the merrier. You're all welcome, and come and chat about old Macs. I would love to hear your stories. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Bye for now. Time for another video on the G5 iMac. And today we're going to do something that we haven't actually done yet, and that's install OSX. So as you may know, if you've been following the series, we've tried a few Linux distributions. We managed to fix some hardware issues. And so I wanted to actually take this back to how it would have been at the end of the supported time for PowerPC. So I have a copy here of OSX Leopard in its shiny goodness. And we're going to get this installed on our G5 iMac and check it out and see if it's still an OS that you could actually use in 2024, what software is available still, and yeah, what can we do with our G5 iMac. Well, that's a little concerning. I was actually in the process of editing another video and it just shut off dead. It wasn't finished installing, it just shut off. Well, hopefully it turns back on. That's a good sign, at least. There is obviously a concern here that, there are bad capacitors, the power supply might not be up to the job, all sorts of things that could be wrong. I just hope it was just a random fluke. We'll go back through and try reinstalling Windows again, because, yeah, OSX never finished installing. There's nothing currently on the drive. We'll go again. I'm not going to put you through watching that, but let's just try and get everything installed on here. And it's just done it again. Something's not right here. Let's, I guess, open her up and see if we can see anything. On first inspection, none of the capacitors look particularly problematic. They all look quite happy. I will say that to the touch, the power supply is incredibly hot, like uncomfortably so. This is also incredibly hot, but that makes a bit more sense. Concerned about how hot this is, and it could be that there's an airflow issue somewhere. The fans seem okay. At least this is the fan that's kind of handling most of this. So I'm going to just kind of try and give it a bit of a clean again, and then we'll try again. I definitely think what's happening though is that the power supply is, yeah, that's really hot, is overheating and just shutting everything down. So let's see if I can check over the fans and see what's going on here. And of course, I just want to point out, because this really is the last Mac that Apple actually let anyone look in and easily do anything with, there are some dev bits here. There is a power button here, so you can actually start the board from inside, and you have indicator lights that tell you what point in the boot process everything is. So Apple can actually make computers that are easy to debug and work on. Just saying, could be done. Don't know if you can see that, but that is a screw loose inside the fan there. So I'm wondering if that got wedged and stopped this fan from spinning. That would definitely cause overheating issues. So I'm going to get that out and we'll see how things go. So it is much, much later in the day, but it did finally install. I think that was exactly the issue. That screw was stopping that fan from being able to spin, which meant that it was overheating absolutely everything in there. And that is the biggest problem with the G5 system. It produces a lot of heat. They were never able to make a G5 laptop for that very specific reason, and also lots of people speculate that that is the reason why they moved over to Intel. The heat that these chips were producing was just getting way too much. And this iMac was basically as small as they could go and still have a G5 system. But we have Mac OS installed. Here we go. We're currently on 10.5.4. That's what came on the disk that I managed to pick up on eBay. But we have our 2 GHz PowerPC G5 with 2 GB of RAM. So first things first, this isn't the latest version of Leopard. This isn't the last version that's actually supported on this architecture. So we need to update the system. And there is built-in software updates. We are connected to Wi-Fi. So let's see if it works. So that took a bit of a minute, but would you believe it? It has actually found the 10.5.8 update, which is the latest version of Leopard, and it's already actually downloading it. So let's get this installed. Let's get the system up to date, and then I'm going to get some software installed on this, and we can, of course, play some games, see if we can surf the modern web, and just generally what else we could do with a computer like this. Well, that took way longer than I would have liked. It is now the next day. I think I had some issues with the hard drive that I was trying to use. This whole project is a little bit cursed. The drive I was using just gave out after I tried to install the update to OSX. So I tried a different drive. That one just flat out refused to do anything. So I eventually just gave up and reused the drive we'd been using to install Linux. So unfortunately, Linux is now wiped, but we can always go back to Linux. It's not a problem. But more importantly, we are now on 10.5.8, which is the last official version of Mac OS X supported for this computer, which is good to see. Yeah, so that was quite a project, but we're there now. We're here, and we've got some bits installed to check it out and see just how usable it is in 2024. The first thing that completely surprised me is that Time Machine still works on here with a modern backup server. So I have a Time Machine backup server on the network. I use it to back up all my modern Macs. And it instantly found it, and it instantly was like, hey, do you want to do Time Machine? Do you want to start backing up? It's being very, very slow because it's doing it over Wi-Fi, and the Wi-Fi in this machine is horribly slow. But it is working. It is backing up, which is kind of cool. So, you know, even after 20 years, or I think this version of macOS was released in 2009. So, okay, not quite 20 years, but even in 15 years, Time Machine is still working, doing its thing, backing up, and I love to see it. I love to see this kind of backwards compatibility. But anyway, other than backing it up, what else can you do with a G5 iMac in 2024? It might not be any surprise, but the amount of software that's available still is pretty limited. You're definitely going to have to use things like Macintosh Garden to find old versions of software and abandonedware that runs on PowerPC. But there's a few things that's still pretty usable. One of them is this really nice kind of word editor called Bean. It works perfectly. Hello. And you know, if you wanted to use this as a machine to just write documents, you can do that. It's fast, it's fluid, it's got graphics acceleration, so the UI and everything else about OS X is completely usable. I really must admit, it runs very well. So you could definitely do that, and this is again obviously not something that's supported for quite some time. I believe this was yeah, 2012 was when this version was released, but it's still usable. It's still a functional word processor, so there's that option, that's for sure. Obviously, you could also get old versions of Word and stuff if you wanted to do that. Another thing is web browsing and browsing the modern web. Well, Safari doesn't really work anymore, especially if you're trying to access anything that uses HTTPS, which is most of the modern web. It doesn't have up-to-date certificates. It doesn't know how to do the handshakes for what the modern web is expecting. But we do have Arctic Fox. Again, unfortunately, this is a little bit old now. They haven't been releasing versions specifically for PowerPC in quite a long time. This person called Wixnix has been trying to backwards compile Arctic Fox for Tiger and Leopard. So this is from last year, and it's a very usable web browser. It's obviously based on Firefox. You can definitely surf a lot of the web, no problem with Google. We can go to the Wikipedia page for the iMac, and that works no problem at all. Completely usable if you wanted to use this for like searching Wikipedia. It will go on some modern websites. For example, you can go on Apple's site and it will load. The issue that we face is kind of modern JavaScript doesn't work well on here. So some things on some websites just straight aren't going to work. For example, images aren't loading in these fancy kind of views, but you can still navigate the website. And some websites just flat out won't work at all if they're particularly JavaScript heavy. So yeah, the usability of the modern web is definitely swiftly crumbling as more and more people rely more and more on JavaScript to do fancy things. So yeah, okay, you could use this as a word processor. You could use this just about to surf the modern web. What about some gaming? Well, we do have some games installed. Let's of course start with the amazing Classy Cube, which is essentially a Minecraft kind of clone, and this works surprisingly well. We are getting As you can see there, 170-ish frames per second in this little window, but if we just make it bigger, so it's full screen, that's a bit better. And we're still getting a reasonable 60 frames per second. So this is entirely playable if you really want to go back and play some classic Minecraft, kind of sandbox version. You've got your original blocks and all that sort of stuff. So this definitely works, and it's rendering it pretty well. The graphics in this is obviously still fairly functional, which is good, because I was worried when we were working with Linux that it was just dead because I couldn't get the drivers to work. So it does seem to be working. I will say I've noticed occasionally some graphical like glitches and things going weird with the screens, so it might be dying, I'm not sure. But yeah, this perfectly functions. Another interesting one I found is someone has ported Half-Life, or at least the version of Half-Life running on the X-Ash 3D engine, which is a backwards engineered version of the Gold engine. So it's not the full game, but it does actually work surprisingly well. In fact, I think it's not even the first level. So as you might know, I do love using Half-Life as kind of a base test on retro computers' gaming ability. So we have a version of Half-Life-ish running on the Power PC. As you can see, there's quite a lot of textures missing. Yeah, not quite sure what's going on. I don't know if that's just that it hasn't been ported yet. This is definitely an old version. Someone compiled this quite a long time ago, so it's not running the latest version of X-Ash 3D. And I'm not sure if we can just update it, but we're getting a modest 40 to 60 frames per second, which is kind of impressive. So I'm quite happy with that. It's definitely a functional machine. Of course, there was a lot of games actually released for OS X. I know that it's a bit of a meme. It certainly has been for a long time that you can't game on Macs and it's rubbish and all that stuff. But there was actually a lot of games released for the platform. So if you can find yourself some copies or look up Abandonware, you can go for it. And one thing I was able to find, which is quite hilarious to me, was Halo. Now, I've never actually played Halo at all. I think I very briefly opened it when I was testing the Xbox 360, but I've never played the original Halo properly. So why not? Why shouldn't we play Halo on a Mac? And not just a Mac, a G5 PowerPC Mac. So we've got it set up here running on kind of low settings, medium textures, but at a more native resolution. And I have to say, it plays incredibly well.
There's one last lifeboat. Quickly, get aboard before it launches. You knew it. The Autumn's accelerating. Keys is going in manual.
Heads up, everyone. This is it. We're entering the ring that.
Apparently my cat wanted to join in as well. There is his tail for your entertainment.
Sure you wouldn't like to
Okay,
take a seat?
I'm taking that as a hint to stop, otherwise I'm just going to play Halo all day. So there we have it. After a little bit of pain and suffering, the G5 iMac is running Mac OS X once again. That was kind of fun, actually. I'm definitely going to play some more Halo, whether it's on the G5 or if I get it up on the Xbox. I feel like I should probably play it on the Xbox, but playing it on an Apple product just makes me laugh. Silly, really. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I would say it's the last video on the G5 for a while, but who knows, because I really love this machine. I think it's an interesting point in tech. It's the last time that kind of, obviously Apple were using PowerPC, and the last time that there was another dominant architecture. And we're kind of reaching that period once again. Apple have once again moved away from Intel and working on ARM. So I think we've kind of reliving that shift in a different way, which is kind of cool. Well, anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you do have any ideas on what else we could do with this iMac, do let me know down below. And I will see you again very, very soon. Bye for now. Yes, we're back again for another G5 iMac video. So today I kind of want to get this into its final form, if you like. We've had a couple of videos now on this Mac going over repairs, getting it up and running, fully functioning, and kind of getting it into a pretty good state considering this cost me £10 from a car boot. So there's just a few things left I want to take care of. One of which is installing an SSD. There's actually currently a 2 terabyte hard drive in here. Well, I want that for other things. So we're going to switch in an SSD. And then I also want to try out another operating system, or rather kind of a mod pack for OS X. And I need to preface that if I at any point say sherbet instead of sorbet, I am sorry. Dyslexic, but I know I mean sorbet, I am sorry. Sorbet Leopard, which is essentially a modified version of the last version of OS X that actually works on these Macs, 10.5, and it includes lots of like backported stuff and should actually improve performance and also usability. As we found in the previous video, 10.5 isn't the most usable operating system anymore. There isn't really a whole lot you can do anymore other than maybe playing some old retro games. Not that there's a huge amount of those for Mac, but nonetheless, it is kind of an interesting project. So I'm going to give that a go. But yeah, first off, let's get this SSD installed and we'll go from there. So I've said this a few times, but this really is such a fascinating iMac. It's kind of the last one that is actually user accessible and is super easy to get into and make changes to. The revisioned version of the G5 iMac loses that, and then moving forward it becomes increasingly difficult. But this is still very easy in that there are literally just 3 screws along the bottom that you unscrew, and then the whole back just lifts off like so, and you're straight into the machine. So it's already pretty upgraded in here. We already have 2 gigs of RAM, and so really the only thing left that we can do is switch out the spinning drive for an SSD. Otherwise, this is really quite a clean machine now. There have been some graphical issues I'm seeing where it's not rendering the right colors and it's kind of going a bit weird. So I do think, unfortunately, the GPU in here might be dying. But if you've got any kind of suggestions when we have a look at it later, do let me know down below. Maybe it's something that I can repair. Anyway, let's get this out and get it replaced with the SSD. So it's kind of just wedged in here. Some of the mounting hardware was lost, wasn't here when I picked up the Mac. Someone previously had removed the hard drive, and so we're kind of missing some stuff. But here's a 2 terabyte drive which I put in. It actually currently says Debian PCC on it. We will be changing and making use of that for a future project. So instead we are just dropping in this SSD. It's actually an adapter for an M.2 SATA drive that's then just sat in there, and then I can just plug it into the usual SATA configuration. So that will work really nicely. The only downside to this is I'm not sure we're going to get much in the way of mounting hardware. So that's the drive. This is the thermal sensor for the hard drive. Well, that's kind of just flopping about anyway. And this is kind of now just flopping about as well. I guess what I could do is get some tape and just tape that down. In fact, let's do that. So first up, we are going to get OS X 10.5 reinstalled. I still absolutely love this case. It's so shiny. It's so cool. We'll get that installed. If you were interested in that process, go check out the previous videos on that. But yeah, we'll get this done, and then I'll be back with you to check out the process for installing Sorbet Leopard. Okay, so we are back in OS X now and ready to give Sorbet a try. So as part of the install process, while I was getting everything installed, I formatted the SSD into 2 partitions. So we have one half that is stock OS X 10.5 and will remain there, and then we have this blank partition that we're going to use for our Sorbet install. And I need to preface that if I at any point say sherbet instead of sorbet, I am sorry. Dyslexic, but I know I mean sorbet. I am sorry. Anyway, let's get on with it. So, the Macintosh Garden webpage for the project has a nice, simple to follow install guide. The first step, it says, is to do just this: create a new partition that you're going to install this to, making sure that it is a Mac OS extended journaled partition. So that is all set up. We are then going to use a program called Carbon Cloner, again by the recommendations of the install guide. So I've already installed that on here. So if we just pop into here, we can find it. And again, the Macintosh Garden website has the downloads for this. It's a really great website if you're looking for old Mac software, that's for sure. So here we go, we have this, and essentially what we need to do is we are going to have our source as restore from a disk image. And then we have this disk image that we have downloaded to use. It's going to mount that disk image and get it all ready to go. And then our destination is going to be on the partition that we've created. Okay, so that's all copied across now. So from the startup disk utility, we should be able to restart into our new install. So here we go. We are into the unofficial 10.5.9 release. There's a few more steps to do in terms of just improving performance, disabling some of the 3D effects and stuff. And then let's take a look at what's installed and see if it's really worth using. And here we go. We are now all set up with Sorbet Leopard. I've installed the 10.13 theme, which I think looks pretty nice. And really, that's kind of one of the things that this has a lot of options for, is those kind of small tweaks to help performance and to also just give a fresh look to a very old system at this point. But we can see if we go into applications that we do have this Sorbet tools folder, which lots of different kind of things you can set up, themes, new wallpapers. There's some demos and stuff in here. I don't know what these are. Let's have a look. Oh, there's a graphics demo, I think. I'm guessing maybe someone will know what these are more than I do. But interesting. And then more importantly, like tweaks to the appearance of the dock, using a 2D one to save on performance. Some dashboard modifications to get rid of it, and there's lots of different like tweaks here that you can use to improve the performance and stability of a very old system indeed. So yeah, those are kind of what come with it pre-configured, I guess, if you like. There are a couple of applications that we get as well. There's this Sorbet App Store, which is mainly just links to Macintosh Garden pages, so you can then download your apps there. It's fine, it's kind of useful. It definitely highlights maybe some tools that you don't necessarily know that they exist, and you can kind of go through and have a look at them. It's a little janky, but it works. The other one though is PPC Store, which is a slightly more fleshed out app store for these old devices. So in here we can definitely kind of see that there are lots of different apps that are available, and I'm going to download a few and see what performance is like. Obviously we have to check to see what it's like browsing the web on this thing. So it's a few days later. I have kind of had the time to download and install a couple of bits of software to try. I've been playing around with it for a while, having some pretty good experience actually with some gaming. So yeah, I think let's just get into it and have a look at some software on this machine. So I think we are now in its final form. I've kind of got everything set up as I like. I'm still getting these weird graphics glitches. I think it's the graphics card, but like I said already, if you do have any ideas, let me know down below. When it came to installing software, this PPC store just didn't work, unfortunately. If I tried to click on any of the links in it, it wouldn't download anything. I don't know if it's just dead now, but unfortunately it didn't work. Having said that, I know I kind of slated it, but this very basic library, if you like, of links to Mac Garden did work, no problem at all, because it is just linking to a website that still exists. Obviously, if that website ever went down, that would be a massive shame for the community, but also this would stop working. So nonetheless, this was kind of useful in terms of they kind of curated some good bits and pieces for this. So I've got some stuff installed. We do have Interweb PPC, which is kind of a fork of Arctic Fox, which in itself is a fork of Firefox, but this just kind of had support for a little bit longer. I would say support has now ended anyway, but we do have basic Google search and kind of basic internet access. Yeah, you're not getting the best experience. Yes, Google, I consent. Take all my data. You're not getting the best experience on here, but it is functional. If you need something to just kind of surf text-based websites, it certainly works. There's no two ways about that. It's definitely completely usable. You could use this as a Wikipedia machine if you liked. More complex websites kind of definitely struggle in terms of usability. As well, just the general, like, the Wi-Fi in this is very old and very slow. It's not got anything on modern implementations. This is, you know, and fair enough. It's mid-2000s. The fact that it had Wi-Fi and Bluetooth at the time, okay, and there you go. It's crashed. So can't load the Apple website. But nonetheless, you do have basic web in 2025, which is cool. There's also a fairly recent version of LibreOffice 5, which does work surprisingly well. Again, another great use for this machine would just be as a kind of text machine. If you were a writer and the graphics glitches weren't there, the screen is crisp, it's clear, it's lovely. This would work really well as a machine. For that kind of purpose. So again, completely functional. You can't really knock it considering its age. So as you may know, if you're a follower of this channel, the most important thing to me, of course, has got to be gaming. And I have installed a couple of games on here. We did this previously under OSX 10.5, and we definitely found that things work quite well, including Halo, which was kind of cool because I'd never played Halo. So I'm not expecting things to be too different here, but I did find through this Sorbet App Store a couple of kind of interesting bits and pieces. One is Minecraft PowerPC Edition, which is based on a much older version of Minecraft than what is current, but it is kind of trimmed down and designed to work on PowerPCs. Oh, that is some funky graphical glitches. You see what I mean here about this? Let's just... Oh no, it's going super funky. Okay, well, we'll see. Okay, that has kind of fixed it a little bit. Yeah, okay, I think the graphics card really is starting to die. Oh, that's such a shame. Maybe I can fix that. Because I had this working earlier and it worked perfectly. It was actually playing really quite reasonably on very low settings, of course, but you could definitely play it. This is clearly not usable. No, a reboot didn't help either. Oh no. Are we witnessing the death of this card's... Are we witnessing the death of this machine's GPU? I think we might be. Alright, I just want to try one more thing, which is Open Arena. Again, this was working perfectly earlier. I'm kind of worried. We'll see. Let's just get up a basic game and see. It's very quick, very responsive. It's a good little game, actually. Okay, yeah, this is also not looking too sharp. Plays very well, though. So, you know, there's that. But again, all these texture issues, these were not here literally yesterday when I was testing this. Oh, such a shame. Smooth and responsive, though, I have to say. Kind of cool. Good little game to play on this older hardware. So there we have it. Unfortunately, this might be the final form of my G5 iMac. Until I can maybe get the board apart and have a look. Maybe we're lucky and there's just something that's kind of blown or something on the board that can be easily replaced. If it's the actual graphics card chip itself, I'm not sure there's going to be too much we can do. It's a real shame because actually this is a nice little OS upgrade. Sorbet Leopard is definitely worth installing if you have this old hardware. Yeah, the install process is a little more complex than a normal OS install, but it's definitely worth doing if you have this kind of hardware. And maybe yours was working a little better than mine is. It really bums me out, but hey, maybe you have some ideas. Maybe we can do something in the future with it. Let me know down below. And thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please do hit that like button and subscribe. We still are a very small channel, so every single subscription really does make a difference. And yeah, on that bummer of a note, we're going to wrap it up for today. So I will see you again very, very soon. Bye for now.